Okay.
There it is.
There it
Okay.
goes.
So this page here is a page of dialogue. And I'm a big fan of a page of dialogue because of the format that it takes. And so this is a bit, this is not on writing. This is not, I believe this will improve your writing, but the bottom line is some of the writing that you would see like Middlemarch and Jane Austen and things like that don't look like this. This is not how it looks in a Jane Austen Jane Austen book, or even a Middlemarch book. This guy has a feature, and I take a look at this, and Stephen King does a similar thing, and I look at this, and it makes me feel good. So I guess I wanted to get a sense about what you thought about that. Don't worry about, I mean, you can read it if you like, but it's nonsense. It has to do with a lady who comes into a bar and does the hokey pokey. Anyway, and of course, that's what it's all about. And so what ends up happening here is this is a form that is always, it's a form that dialogue takes all the time. The problem is that we do write what's called narrative as well. And it sometimes doesn't look like this. So I guess what I would like to know is, how does this particular one make you feel, say, Carol? Not the words themselves, because they're not inspired, but a page that would look like this. Say you turned in a novel you were reading, and you can't go by the stuff you're writing, because we all feel that we write brilliantly, okay, no matter how the format looks like. But if you turn this page, what would this page say to you?
I would say that it would inform me that there's going to be dialogue, but it's also kind of a breath of fresh air. Like if you've really gotten through a lot of narrative and it's kind of been just a wall of text, and all of a sudden to have something move very quickly that you're reading, it's
Yeah,
kind of a good feeling. It's kind of a change in pace sometimes, which feels good to the reader.
I think so too. I think that it promises that I can get through this page in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'll still probably get a lot of information, because we all of us as readers, we get a lot of information from dialogue. This guy, this particular guy here, has what's called white space, and I'm a gigantic believer in white space. There's a big old hunk of it right here.
Hmm.
Okay, uh, little tiny snippets of dialogue, okay, are full of white space, but I tried to throw a bunch of them in here as well. And here's the deal. It's people that open up a book at random, and they do that. Okay, you get about a half a page. Okay, let's just suppose with all of our books get published, and they're sitting in the new bin at Barnes and Noble, and they open them up and they take a look. You get a half a page. That's how long you get them. If they turn to this page, they might turn to another one too. They would read this because they would get through it quickly. Okay. And I guess what I'm trying to say is the modern reader has ADHD. Okay. They just do. They do not necessarily have a lot of staying power. So now I want to show you something else. This is basically what it's all said and done is a lot of alliteration, keeping his hat over his heart, Harold hung his hoary head. Okay, anyway, the bottom line is when it's all said and done, this harpsichord player applauds and says, I could die happy now because he watched someone do the hokey pokey. Anyway, now we come to this. This is the page you turn to. And here's my big deal. I have been on the planet a long time, and I collect emails from people that write to me about my books that have been published. And people write to me, and the biggest one that really makes me happy says, I hate your guts because about midnight last night, I turned a page and I could not stop turning pages. I had to finish the book, and I had a presentation to give at 6 o'clock this morning. Okay. And I was tired through the whole thing. Thanks a lot. Okay. The bottom line, I guess, with all of this is, I don't think necessarily if I turned this to this page at midnight, I would have read that. I'd have come to this page at midnight. I'd have reached over and got a bookmark, stuck it in here. And here's a fact of life. If someone puts a bookmark in your book, You only have one chance in two of them ever taking that bookmark out again and finishing the book. One chance in two. Most books, if they come to this page, they don't finish it. So I guess what I would like to do is I'd like to show you what this could look like, because narrative can look like this. Dialogue does look like this, okay? But narrative doesn't have to look like this, okay? Like, for instance, I just want to show you something real quick, okay? Here's a line. I don't know if I'm allowed to mess with it in this format. No, I can't. It simply says, I was gobsmacked. Okay, if that was a line that I was writing, I would do this. All of a sudden, my giant paragraph is cut in pieces. I would proceed then to vivisect this entire page so that it looked like the page where the dialogue was. It's the same words. Now, some of them, of course, will be moved to the next page, and that's not that big a deal. But you have a much better chance of them being read, okay, if they were not so dense, okay? And so consequently, there's many places you can start to break this guy up. Okay. Oh, and this is just a ridiculous bit of narrative too. Questions burbled up from my bilious belly. Where can a man find a bed? Where have all the flowers gone? Who let the dogs out? Why am I such a lonely boy? And most importantly, why does anyone really know the way to San Jose? After that brilliant writing, wouldn't it be a shame if no one read that? But if you did this, now they'll have a better chance of doing it. The questions are all by themselves. And if you really wanted to get good with this, you could do this. And all of a sudden, the questions are on their own. This is ridiculous. I don't think I would even do this because this looks weird. I would probably put them all together in one paragraph, but you could do this. You could literally just break it up. And so consequently, if a person came to this, they would read all these questions. But if they're in the middle of a giant, dense paragraph and you went to all the trouble of being so clever, they might not. And I guess that's the thing which I wanted to get across is I know it's shallow, I know, and it's not earth-shattering writing, okay? Your writing needs to probably stand on its own regardless of how you sculpt the page. But the bottom line is sculpting the page will help your reader, and it gives you a chance to actually give them a leg up, because not all readers read dense paragraphs all that well. And if they get to them, okay, Carol, you just said, well, I just slogged through that. But have you ever had books that you didn't slog through? You come to a paragraph like that big old paragraph that I had, and you just go, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so consequently, imagine the book is good, but not great. You might not finish it. Okay. But if you break it up, and this is kind of a ludicrous, extreme version of breaking it up. But the bottom line is if you did that, you have a much better chance if the thing looks like this of it being read than if it looked like it used two giant paragraphs. I'm just asking you to think about that, and that's about all I'm going to say because I'm not a maven on writing. Okay, I'm not the world's authority on how things should be sculpted, but I do believe that if you have something you want to say and it's important that you say it, put it in a form that makes your reader want to read it. Okay, just something to think about. Okay, and sometimes it's just as you're going to edit it anyway. Okay, because your first draft isn't going to be what eventually gets published. You're going to go through it. My first book that got published, I probably edited it 50 times, but it got published. Okay, and it did quite well. I sold through my first printing. Didn't sell through my second printing, unfortunately, but what the heck. Anyway, so any questions? Any people who feel I'm full of bull?
I think you're spot on.
Yes, I love it. I love page sculpting. Well,
I do too.
yeah,
I do
if you
too.
can we see your face again if you stop screen sharing?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
Here we
great.
go. Boom.
Awesome.
There I am.
What'd you call that? Page sculpting, Randy?
Page sculpting.
Page
You know what,
sculpt.
Bob? That's interesting. So that, no, I don't think you're full of bull anything. I think it's really good. And it reminds me of some great advice I got from he was a retired Navy captain and he was a civil service guy back when I was a young sergeant. And I was putting in a package to get a commission in the Air Force. And he said, when you sit on a board and you look at all these packages, forms that, everyone fills out and they just go through forms. And if you know anything about government or military forms, there's big blocks where you're allowed to type in. And everybody, 99.9% of the people fill in every ounce of space in that block just to say as much as they can, thinking that gives them an edge. And this retired captain told me, he said, in your form, and you had to do like an essay. He said, in your form, do paragraph indents, do spaces, leave white space. Uh, he said, because when you're on that board and you're an old colonel and you're looking through all these forms, it will catch your attention more than anything else. So I did that. And I did get selected for a commission. So, maybe it had something to do with that. But it's exactly what you were saying with the white space and writing in a way, knowing the audience and writing in a way that they're going to want to read that stuff. So page sculpting, I've never heard that term before. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
I got that from poets. You've all seen this where poets will actually sculpt their poem to look like a thing, like a Grecian urn or something. Okay. And I thought, well, if they can do that, I would never sculpt anything I wrote to look like a Grecian urn, although that's a big deal now in young adult books, especially ones that are replicating Twitter. I mean, like there are people talking back and forth to each other in Twitter, and they make them look like a certain way so that a kid will run through that particular material. And if you go through it and look at it, it might have, this young adult book might have 200 pages, but in reality, if you put it all condensed, it probably would only have like 120 because they automatically spread the things out. Because I hung out with junior high school people for 35 years and I love them. I do, but they are not necessarily built around reading dense text. They want stuff to be easy to do and easy to read. And I'm not even saying their songs are not as good as the songs I had, although they're not. Okay, when I was a kid. The bottom line is what they have though are songs which are put together like the way we talk. Okay, and how we talk. I once again these great courses class. I took one on language, and we talk in 6-word bunches. We stop sentences in the middle, take a breath, and then continue. In fact, if you listen to the Watergate tapes, you can barely get through it because these people are just, yeah, and then I was okay. Okay, they do that. And so they write these things like these kids talk. Okay, and consequently, it's the same sort of thing, I guess, for even writing a thriller or a mystery or a horror book. Okay, I would sculpt the page. Can you stand to listen to me one more time? Because I have another soapbox I want to get on. How many of you have ever written and you love your dialogue? I mean, you love your dialogue. But the only thing you can say at the beginning of it is, he chuckled. He pursed his lips. He smiled. Okay. And then someone comes along to you and they're critiquing your thing and they say these dreaded words. You didn't show, you told. Okay. And then they tell you about show, not tell. And you've heard it so much that it really doesn't have any meaning anymore, does it? When someone says show, not tell, don't you sort of just, your eyes glaze over and you go, I don't even know I don't even know how to do what you're saying. So I've got just something I want to say about show, not tell. Show, not tell is just a phrase that has lost all meanings. What show, not tell really means is that you have an under dramatized dialogue and narrative. Okay. In other words, it just doesn't have enough stuff in it. Okay. Like if someone rammed you from behind, you say, well, I was hit from behind by a guy that had a Confederate flag on his car, and he's just a boogerhead. Okay. Sorry, you had to hear me talk like that. Anyway, bottom line is you could write so much around that. You could tell what his face looked like. Maybe he had a scar on his face. Maybe he was wearing a Pennzoil hat that was stained. Okay, you could write all that, and then people will come back and say, well, I don't want to put too much description. And I even have a thing about that too. You don't want to write too much description in your book. That's true. But it doesn't mean you can't write too much description in your first draft. Just put down as much crap as you want in your first draft, because it's easier to take stuff out than it is to put stuff in. It's not so easy to what's called fluff it up, but it is easy to bash it back down. Okay. And then you can show, not tell. Okay. And that's a big deal. And I try not to use, I teach a writing class to vets. In fact, I thought of you, Carol. I have a guy that had a situation where he was very, very ashamed of what happened. I don't know. I guess I'll tell you my story. When I was in prison the first time, in a civilian prison, I was multiply raped. And so was he. He was raped. And he's this giant of a man who did 4 tours in the Middle East, and he was raped. And now he's writing a book about people that have had trauma and of a similar type, because I guess it happens more often than we know. Anyway, the bottom line here is, when he's writing his stuff, it's very powerful, because he shows what he's doing. He puts the stuff, he puts the feel of the narrative, doesn't just say, oh, well, you should try every day, but he gives all kinds of stuff around trying. And I guess it's so easy to tell someone, well, you're told, not shown, but it's a lot, but it doesn't say as much as saying, this scene could use a little more dramatization. I wish I would have said that word better. Anyway, anyway, so the bottom line, I guess, is to tell someone you need to show and don't tell doesn't tell them anything. And you're probably going to find people that you're going to want to talk to about that sort of thing. But it's easier to say, this scene could use a little more dramatization. Just fluff it out a little bit more and do some more stuff. Tell me, sort of close your eyes, be in that scene, and tell me what you see. Okay. And so I'm going to stop talking. That's my entire soapbox, because I'm so tired of people saying show, don't tell, because I don't think it means anything anymore. Okay. If you teach writing, and I teach writing to these vets who, by the way, in 5 years, one of them is a copy editor. One of them just finished her first novel. The guy I was just talking about has had published poetry. He's this giant of a man, and his poetry makes me weep, and it makes my heart ache. And he's got a book he's finishing, and he's just, and it just, yeah, these guys are, I'm very proud of them. Okay. And well, I'm proud of you too. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, enough of this talking. So I'm going to stop. Okay. That's my lessons.
Thank you, Bob. I love that. Now you all see, he just has these amazing perspectives about writing. And I remember when he was first teaching me about page sculpting, and it was like the biggest light bulb would come on, just breaking up, put one line by itself, and that was like the hugest thing. So, but it really does make a wonderful difference. So I'm sure you all found that helpful.
Oh, yes, very much.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Now my life now has meaning. Oh.
Oh, I love it.